accept our praises, Heavenly Father, through your Son, our Saviour, Jesus Christ. And as we follow his example and obey his commands, grant that by the power of your Holy Spirit, these gifts of bread and wine may be to us his body and his blood.
Simon Bailey is a parish priest. He's preparing to spend the next 15 hours attached to a drip. It's nearly 2 years since he developed symptoms of AIDS. This is his routine, 5 days a week. He has to live with a tube surgically inserted into his chest. It's the only way his body can absorb nutrition. The source of Simon's infection was a homosexual relationship he had before he came to this parish. He isn't the first parish priest to get AIDS, but he's the first in the Church of England to carry on working. Simon has kept a written journal since his teens. Since the autumn, he's also kept a video journal.
There is inevitably still always this lurking shadow deep, deep down about AIDS as a self-inflicted wound. Something I could have avoided. Something that I've brought on myself rather than a straightforward disease for which one can't be held responsible. I really do think myself, obviously, that that's the case. Certainly at the stage when I must have contracted it, there was no way of knowing that that was a possibility. And yet, that's there for people. And whilst no one says it, it must lurk in the background for a lot of people that this is my own fault.
Simon Bailey's parish lies above the coalfields of South Yorkshire. It's had to cope with the decline of coal. They never dreamt they would have to confront AIDS or gay clergy in their parish. Dinnington is a busy village and home to a population of around 10,000. It was Simon's first post as parish priest.
Right, but all the dear three pounds, I think it's still found a day, 60 cents, that's all.
In the church, sketches are being rehearsed for a parish concert.
Have the scene notice each shop window? How the hell he's got his trousers down again?
Oh, you'll all win Oscars for that. Harry Early's got it. Are you saying?
Simon has encouraged use of the church as a community centre. Work on the concert draws in people who aren't regular churchgoers, as well as those who are, like Sam Robinson.
I went for a green chip from Eddie Patrick. Simon is the first bachelor priest we've had. And consequently, it's been different anyway. We're different from the beginning. I mean, if you take it that he were a gay priest as well, I mean, all these things made for a different situation to what we'd ever understood before.
I know they're a lot cheaper.
Some in the parish already knew Simon was gay. A few had guessed. But the news came as a shock to many.
The HIV issue didn't cause us a great deal of problem because we understood through a meeting organised by Church Council that there didn't seem to be any difficulties as far as, you know, danger to the community in terms of the disease was concerned.
He said I walk this way.
You do, you're right. Yes. He's right, he's right. Right, sorry, Walter.
Simon's being gay did come as something of a surprise because it had sort of been traditionally brought up within the church, and recognising that the church has always stood for sort of traditional values and family values, and promoting marriage as being the ideal and the family community as being the setting which the church would expect things to be within, then yes, it did come as a great surprise. It was something I think that I myself personally found hard to come to terms with, certainly initially.
First of all, the shock that he's going to die. And we're very similar ages. He's about 9 months older than I am. So that was the immediate shock, death. Then homosexuality. There are a lot of people who won't, can't, or don't accept it.
This was uppermost in my mind first, and how could they do it? You know, this is horrible, and it's still, I don't agree with it. But having said that, we have got Simon here, and he's terminally ill, and he will leave us. How soon, how long he's got, we don't know. But what will be the label we've got when he's gone? Will people say, well, I'm not going there because they love these sort of people? We love everybody.
I liked him as a person, as a man, and I think, as I say, and he's such a kind and he's considerate and everything else. Other than that, I mean, as regards whether I prefer a married priest, heterosexuals, or whatever, that to me is a difference. You know, it's just something I don't wish to comment on anyway.
Why not?
That's my business.
Of course, the easiest thing, really, the obvious answer is to resign and retire from the scene, as it were, so that all these issues would, in one sense, go away. Of course, they wouldn't. They remain here and they remain in the church, and the church's reaction is usually to resign and go away and hope these things will go away too, and of course they don't. And I suppose that's the very reason why I don't want to resign. But however hard it is and whatever risks it involves taking, I'd really rather face the issues and hope that other people can do that with me.
Two innovations were to take place in Dinnington, which
There's nothing in Dinnington's living memory to prepare them for these issues.
was the Enclosures Act of 1779.
Simon's curate, Mike Cameron, has been co-opted to narrate Dinnington's history in the concert.
In 1902. In 1902, when the first sounds of hammer and drill were heard, water was still being drawn from pumps scattered about the village, but these were privately owned. Many villagers had to carry water from the town well yard, which was quite a way down Church Lane.
Parish pride in its mining history had taken a battering when Simon arrived in 1985. It was a year after the Dinnington miners had supported the 1984 strike to its bitter end. It might have seemed an unlikely parish for a reserved and bookish young clergyman, but for Simon, the only irony in the appointment was the timing of his arrival.
I'd by then left the previous appointment and gone away on retreat to prepare and pray and so on. And then I came home to discover this letter, which I assumed rightly to be telling me that I was HIV positive. But of course, in those days, people were saying most people didn't go on to develop AIDS. I suppose I assumed I was going to be one of the ones who didn't develop AIDS.
Simon was diagnosed HIV positive 8 years before the symptoms of AIDS appeared. In that time, he built up a reputation that stood him in good stead since he became ill.
Well, he opened many doors for us, didn't he? Things like going on retreats and quiet houses, and which we'd never done before, even though we were, you know, regular churchgoers. But that was something that had never been introduced to us at all. And it's something that we did, you know, well, we did love, didn't we? You know, when we went to stay with the nuns at Slides, and we just thought, well,
world, really, wasn't
this would have never happened if Simon hadn't come along, because he made the introduction.
I think his strength is his teaching and his writing, and certainly with study groups and the sermons that we've had during Simon's time have been very thought-provoking, and I think we've benefited greatly from that.
Simon has always made a point of giving parishioners a role in church life, particularly if they thought it was beyond them.
A lot to thank Simon for in my life. I've always been quiet, reserved sort of a person. And he used to talk to me, he said, "You want to read?" And I said, "I don't think so." He said, "Try it, just try it for once." So I did, and now I do the reading and I do the prayers. I feel more involved now. I just knew we were homosexual, and he looked ill, and I used to watch films and see them on it, and it just sort of looked like that. It's just that my husband was very anti-homosexual, and it did cause, we had a meeting about it, and it did cause trouble at that time. But I didn't stop going to church, even though my husband did. I just tried to put it back in my mind, really. I just don't think about it a lot.
There are many in Dinnington who do voluntary work around the village, and they've rallied round to help the rector carry on with his ministry. Kath Graham is one of a group of volunteers who take it in turns to stay in the rectory while Simon is attached to the drip.
It's only me. It didn't worry me that he was a priest and was gay. I've known for a long, well, since just after he came. I wasn't going to go broadcasting it because I didn't know what the position was with people. And you don't want to cause trouble if there's no need for it. And so far as I was concerned, it was perfectly all right, which I've been told since I shouldn't have thought.
Hi, Kath.
Hi. Do you want a drink?
I'd love a cup of tea, please.
What would you like? Tea?
Tea, please.
Right.
Simon now uses his time on the drip to carry on his work through evening meetings at the rectory. He's made a point of trying to involve people in activities outside the church.
What was the legal bit of the ANC, the UDS?
This meeting, addressed by visiting speakers, is part of this style of ministry.
Which came under Boutalese. And really, in some senses, I could do no right. For the UDS, they were very suspicious of me because I was white, and they assumed that I must be within caste.
I feel strongly that the church is not just about one's private prayer life, but was very much about community in all its dimensions, which includes prayer and spirituality, and opportunities for lay people here to explore their own gifts and make their own contributions.
And that's what the Lord was calling me to do.
While Simon was establishing himself as rector, Dinnington was changing. The colliery was declining and new estates had sprung up. In 1991, the pit was closed completely, and the banner of the National Union of Mine Workers was installed in the church. But a more substantial memorial to the pit was also proposed.
There was a great sadness when the colliery closed, and I think Simon, even though, you see, mind you, as a boy, he was brought up not far from Dinnington anyway, only about 5 miles down the road. So he'd lived in the colliery area, but when the colliery closed, he just felt that we ought to do something, you know, and this was his idea. It was his idea entirely, this miners' memorial.
Simon involved artists who worked with the community to design a memorial screen. They chose a symbolic tree of life to commemorate the pit, the living it gave them, and the lives of the 75 men killed in it.
A parishioner died today of AIDS. I didn't know him personally. I think we'd met once or twice, though I know his family. And he died on the ward I'm usually on. He was there earlier this week when I was there. And apparently he asked, and I get the impression the family certainly want me to take the funeral, though they do know my situation too. And not surprisingly, I find it all very strange. Lots of ironies, inevitably. I did see him, though I don't think he was conscious. And by the time I saw him as I was leaving the ward on Thursday, he was surrounded by nurses and obviously undergoing intensive treatment of different kinds, and then he died this morning. Seemed to me to have slipped away. And then a friend rang me this morning to say that he died. And I, not surprisingly, cried for him. For me, because inevitably it makes me think, is it me next? Will I go the same way? Or will I cope? And cried too for all the people who die in the same way, and especially somehow for those who die and their families are still more worried about everybody knowing them genuinely solely concerned for the loss, though obviously nobody can reckon that up.
Simon hasn't lacked in support from his family. His mother lives in the parish, and his brother and sisters visit when they can.
I used to come a lot when I was at home before I was ordained. Walk over from Hellaby quite regularly.
You can walk on the stream from Maltby as well.
Yeah, I used to do that, yeah. Done that a few times.
Quite a long way though.
Yeah, couldn't do it now. I couldn't have even done this walk.
AIDS began its mysterious assault on Simon's body nearly 2 years ago. He has to make weekly visits to hospital in Sheffield to monitor its effects.
When I weighed myself at home, it was 47.5, but...
Right. 49. Did you have a big lunch? Come sit down and I'll take your glass.
The medical record accrues information about everything except life expectancy. His consultant sees that as a battle between the virus and the will to live.
I believe that medical treatment's of secondary importance to the psychological and the emotional well-being and the purpose that an individual has in their life. And in that respect, Simon is quite extraordinary in the strength of his purpose.
Last week I collected it myself.
The spiritual aspects of his work very much are translated into a positive zest for living in order to help other people.
No, you look fine. You don't feel anemic or anything.
I feel all right.
When did you have the last transfusion?
Central to Simon's will to live is the ability to remain as rector of Dillington, but his illness pointed to a past breach of church discipline.
The Lord is here. Almighty God, to whom all hearts are open, all desires known.
The bishop consulted the archdeacon on the situation in the parish.
Cleanse the thoughts of our hearts.
I was convinced that Simon was not engaged during his time as rector of Dillington in homosexual activity. He made that clear to me at some point, or I assume that anyway, and I never inquire what is going on behind bedroom doors. I think it's quite inappropriate to do so. So under those circumstances, what was important was, is Simon's ministry acceptable in Dillington? Are the people of the parish responding? Are they valuing Simon as a priest, as their person given cure of souls in that area, and are they welcoming his ministry? Now, the evidence is overwhelming. Simon's ministry in Dillington is exceptional. It is one of the best pieces of ministry going on in the diocese in all sorts of ways. And that seemed to me, I think seemed to the bishop, and has continued to seem to me and the bishop, to be the fundamentally important factor within the situation, with the homosexual bit disappearing a bit into the background.
If there hadn't been the talk of AIDS, I think everybody would have said, of course he must stay and we will support him. And when you stop to think about it, the nature of the illness made no difference, and there was no real reason for saying no. Now, inevitably, actually, you can't totally ignore the cause of infection and so forth. And it was relevant to me, my knowledge of his present lifestyle, that it was entirely in keeping with the faith of the church and no cause of scandal in this. And what may or may not have happened 10, 15, 20 years ago didn't seem to me relevant to the situation we found ourselves in. The more I think about it, this preoccupation with these kind of issues that the church seems so happy to get knotted up in some ways, it's not really very important who your vicar sleeps with, whether it's a man or a woman. By comparison with some of the issues people generally are facing in their lives, really pales into insignificance. When you think of even a community like this, in which people are facing huge problems of unemployment and where their livelihood is going to come from, all the threats that poses to their family relationships and so on, what young people in the communities like this are facing in terms of drug culture and all that sort of thing. Whether the vicar is gay or straight, it can't really be that important.
We have the good news of all the wondrous things that God has been prepared to do for all his people all over the world.
For Simon, his sexuality is secondary to his battle with AIDS and his work as rector of Dillington. But his illness has forced his sexuality into the public domain, and for many in the parish, homosexuality begs more difficult questions than terminal illness. Derek Norbury is not an ordained priest, but helps with services as a lay reader. He's been openly gay for 20 years.
There is a gay community in Dinnington, yes. There's quite a few gay people in Dinnington. Unfortunately, I feel very sorry for them because they're not in a position to be able to come out and to live as gay people.
Hi, Derek.
Morning, Simon. How are you today?
Too bad, thank you. I'll get you some coffee.
Okay, thanks. Through my life, I've experienced a terrible time in Dinnington for gay people. When I say terrible, I mean you get the sniggers and you get people laughing at you. Behind your back, of course, not many people do it to your face.
No. Thank you. I think we need to have a word about this funeral first.
Right.
And then we'll have a look at producing something for Advent.
I feel quite strongly that Derek has, while at one level, taken some of the flack that should have been mine over the years, but also blazed a trail, if you like, and prepared people, at least to some extent, for this particular experience.
And then
Derek was born and bred in Dinnington. His openness may have eased attitudes toward gay men in ordinary life, but when Simon encouraged him during 2 years of training to become a lay reader, he gained a foretaste of the parish reaction to gay men having a role in church services.
It was all right while I was an ordinary member of the congregation, and I sat in the congregation and I stayed there. But when they found out that I would be administering the chalice and I would be working in the sanctuary, some of them thought it would not be right to have a gay reader doing that. So I did say to Simon that if it was going to be causing any trouble in the church, that any divisions may be made, that I should resign. And Simon said, no, the church is for everyone. It's there for you. And if you resign on this point, I shall resign also.
Yeah. My voice isn't always, every Sunday is not safe to leave it to me. Chat to Doreen about that.
Derek was once manager and licensee of Dinnington's Lyric Theatre. It's seen a wide variety of productions and remains a focal point in Dinnington's social life. There's a strong tradition of rival operatic and theatrical societies. But pantomime dames are a part of a tradition that hasn't yet come to terms with gay clergy.
Baking away for all the world to see.
I think when you're older, to accept things what were taboo when you were young is a lot harder than somebody who was growing up with it.
Just like apple pie, and I will have a big surprise.
No qualms about people what they gave because I've never found it difficult. What but as regards priests, well, I don't know.
They make our tummies rumble, just like a robot crumble. Those magic parts of trail our jump starts. Come on, 1, 2, 3.
The Lord is here. Lift up your heart. Let us give thanks to the Lord our God. It is right to give him thanks and praise.
Many parishioners face a conflict between their distaste for the idea of a gay priest and their admiration for Simon Bailey, which had developed over years of personal contact before they discovered he was gay.
I can understand fully that, it's almost an impossible situation, because had Simon said, I am gay and I'm coming to be our priest, then I don't think he would have been welcomed in the way that he was coming as he did.
Have created all things from the beginning.
And I don't think really, if we repeat the process whenever, the situation would be much different, because people obviously value Simon as a priest in many ways, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they accept his being gay.
I think the hardest thing people have to work towards is the realization that's now absolutely clear to me that they can't separate my sexual identity from the rest of me. The person they've grown to appreciate as their parish priest, from whom they might feel they've learnt, and who they might feel has helped them to grow and so on, isn't separable from this person who is also gay. The fact that I began to realise that I was different sexually about the age of 10 or so was the same time at which I was beginning to feel some sense of vocation, and that I would one day be ordained. I don't think it's insignificant that those two things began to emerge together, though I equally find it very difficult to explain the connection.
You think of priests as people who are perfect, 100%. They have been trained, they know what they're in, they know what the prayers are about, they know what the worship of God and Christ is all about. They should be 100% perfect and have no... They should be flame-proof, to quote a Corrie term. They should be flame-proof to withstand every onslaught and wicked thing that assails them, the devil assailing them in the world, everything. To me, that was my interpretation of a priest. From the lowliest priest to the highest archbishop. They should be pure.
Alison Cook, the district nurse, visits once a week to dress the point where the drip tube enters Simon's chest.
Might be a little bit cold.
I do find myself wondering sometimes how I will actually go. Anyone would like to go with quietly folded hands and a calm, benign countenance and all the rest of it, but it's most unlikely to be that in the very nature of AIDS. On the one hand, it would be easy enough to frighten myself by thinking about the details of what it might be like. On the other hand, there's no point in being escapist and unrealistic. That's always the tension in all of this. Finding a way between those two things.
I personally feel that we are a long way from actually the church accepting vicars, rectors, priests having gay partners. And I think, you know, if you go down that road, then you have to consider the possibility, and rightly so, you would have to consider the possibility of the church blessing such relationships and probably having to put those relationships in the context of a normal marriage. And certainly, in view of the discussion and debate that we had over women priests, I think, you know, we are a long way from that.
I'm not sure really whether we're ready to have an open acceptance of gay priests. Not in the sense of Simon, but in the sense of, in the future, where the priest may have a lover in the rectory, may want to come down to the service holding his lover's hand. I don't think we're ready for that yet.
Personally, I just prefer things as they were. I feel it's we've had a period now which has been different. But personally, I'd like to go back now to a period of possibly a man and his wife and possibly kids and take it from there. But that is nothing whatsoever to do with Simon or anything to do with this period of time or changes nothing. I mean, the thoughts for the man don't alter in any way, shape or form.
There's a sense of loss in Dinnington. The familiar heart of the parish for 3 generations has gone for good.
It's hard looking round to see that this is the place where I started work in 1939. I was in the classroom on Friday afternoon, and on Monday morning I was in the electrician's shop here, starting my working life. And now looking at it, when it was closed in 1991, within a couple of months it was flattened, just like this. This is where the coal used to come out, number 1 shaft, and number 2 shaft where the men went down, and the well shaft where we pumped the water to keep the pits clear. It is, I cannot find words to describe what it looks like. It really is a bomb that struck it. Terrible, really terrible.
For the church in Dinnington, Simon's illness and sexuality have jolted traditional assumptions about their parish priest. For Simon, his difference is part of his ministry.
Jesus Christ is the light of the world, a light no darkness can quench.
The service to dedicate the new screen, with a candle for each miner killed, set the seal on the end of an era in Dinnington, and will also remain a testament to the ministry of Simon Bailey.
A. Osborne, M. Wilkinson, S. Hayward, W. Cocking, J. Dilks.
R. Hughes, S. White, G. Stroggart, J. Cooper, E. Gomersoff,
W. Holt, J. Hughes, J. Hemsley, F. Huntingdon, W. Stewart,
J. Doherty, P. Broadfoot, A. Briggs, H. Wright, L. Parkin.
Yesterday, last night, I did get very low. Low because, again, of some of the indignities that go with this, and there seemed for a while to be one thing after another, being sick and diarrhea and everything all at once, all at the wrong time, when I wanted to be doing something else, and so on and so forth. And I found myself with that cry again, take it away, take it away, take it away. And knowing all the time that that's not really on the cards. Take it away.